Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the virtual hackathon that we're doing for the Connect the Community Challenge. Just want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate it. And we would like to have this session as interactive as possible. So unfortunately, the way the webinar works, we can't unmute people to actually chat live with you, which would be really good. But what you can do is a lot of you have already discovered down the bottom, you can write a message and that's public to everybody. So if you've got any questions as we are going through the presentation or once we get to the Q&A session, you can write your message or your question there. If you want to remain anonymous, then there's a text box up the top, and then your question will go to the speakers, but you won't be flagged up as the person writing the question. So that's just a little bit of pointing those things out before we get started. So on the call with me today, my name is Claire Steed, and I work for Nordic Semiconductor, and my job title is the Regional Sales Manager for UK and Ireland. So I'm the point of contact if you are situated in the UK or in Ireland, then I'm the point of contact for Nordic. I also I'm lucky enough to have Sam Presley from RS Components joining me, and Torbjorn from our support in Norway. So he has got a great technical knowledge of both our short range and our long range devices. So guys, do you want to say hi?
Hello.
Hi everyone, Sam here. Thank you for joining us today.
Excellent, thank you. And can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So a little bit about the companies behind the challenge that we've set you guys. So Cadent are the company that are actually funding the main top prize. So the ultimate prize for this competition is that Cadent will take your idea and actually make it a reality, a proper proof of concept. So Cadent are the UK's largest gas network operator. So that means they sit behind the actual gas kind of your companies that you pay, your Scottish Powers and your Eons, and they actually take care of the pipes and the actual logistics of getting the gas to your actual home. So as such, they are really passionate about keeping the end customers safe and warm and connected in their homes. And they're really looking for new and innovative ideas to help keep especially the most vulnerable in our society safe and healthy and happy in their homes. So I obviously work for Nordic, and our part to play in the competition is supplying the technology. So Nordic are the world's #1 in Bluetooth Low Energy, and we've also launched a cellular IoT product. So both of these wireless technologies help enable connectivity and also retrofitting, and it means retrofitting into people's home is much simpler because you don't have to wire things in. So we want to see our technology effectively being used to improve people's lives and for good. So that's kind of why Nordic got involved in this challenge. I'm going to pass to Sam, and Sam can talk a little bit about RS.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining. I'm Sam from RS Components, and my job title is Lead Inspiration Engineer. So it's my job to help people learn about our products and all of our suppliers, and help them kind of get started with technology. So RS Components is a global provider of electronics and industrial components. We work with about 2,500 suppliers around the world. And we are really passionate about inspiring the kind of next generation and current generation of engineers to do new and exciting things. And we're really excited to be working with Nordic, one of our suppliers, and Cadent, one of our customers, to bring you this competition. So we're hosting this competition on designspark.com. So designspark.com is RS Components design engineering platform. We've got about 950,000 members all over the world. And those people are sharing the projects that they're working on a day-to-day basis. And they're also coming to DesignSpark to learn about new technologies. Also on DesignSpark, we have free electronic, mechanical, electrical CAD software, which you can use if you're looking to prototype your ideas. And I really recommend you taking a look around DesignSpark to get some ideas to kind of get you started with the competition if you're kind of struggling and looking for a little bit of inspiration. So I'm just going to hand back over to Claire, who's now going to talk you through a little bit more on the Connect the Community Design Challenge, and what it is that we're looking for from you in your entries.
Thanks, Sam. So the Connect the Community Design Challenge, what are we looking for? What's it about? So really, I think we took kind of a little bit of inspiration from recent events. A lot of people around the globe are in lockdown and not getting out and about to see friends, family, neighbours as much as you would normally. And it's kind of shown what it's like for a lot of people to live isolated lives. And that's hopefully going to be a temporary situation once the COVID-19 is under control. But for a lot of people, that is just their normal life anyway. And so we wanted you guys to be able to put yourselves in these people's shoes and actually think about what it is that could help improve the daily lives of these most vulnerable people to stay safe and stay healthy, stay active, to stay mentally active in their own homes. And I think that's the ideal situation, because I think a lot of people have proved that, especially for the older people, if they can stay independent safely, then they're a lot happier in their own environment. So that's the kind of the main kind of effectively problem to solve. We're looking just for a product design, and it doesn't need to be, when you put in your entry, it doesn't need to be fully featured and thought out. We just want the general kind of basic idea of what your product is going to do and how it is going to solve the problem. So, and think about, Sam's going to go through the judging criteria, but just when you're putting in your entry, think about how it's going to tick all those boxes for your kind of known need in the community. So obviously we'd like it to use Nordic technology. So that could be Bluetooth or Thread or mesh, some sort of mesh technology. So that's our nRF52 family, or cellular, so the kind of longer range, so using the cellular network to send little bits of information, not very often. So that's LTM and narrowband IoT, and we'll go through those a little bit more detail later on. If you submit a good idea and we really like it, then we can help you further develop your idea by sending you some Nordic development kit, and also RS might send you some bits and bobs too. But again, if you don't have any engineering experience and you're not interested in Get a Kit, please don't worry, please just still send us your idea. And as I mentioned, the top prize is getting your idea taken to proof of concept stage. So we're going to take your kind of PDF idea, this paper idea, and actually make it into a product, which I think is really exciting. Sam, do you want to talk about the judging criteria?
Yeah, thanks, Claire. So now I just want to talk through these 5 judging criteria in a little bit more detail, just to make sure if you're thinking of entering the challenge, you kind of fully understand what it is that we're looking for. And there's more information on these judging criteria on the competition webpage. There's a downloadable document that has a bit more information in. So the first judging criteria we're looking at is, does the product idea meet a known need? Okay, so we're looking for you to explain in your entry who the product is aimed at and what their need is that you're trying to address. So think about the challenge, look at what we're trying to address. So we're looking to address challenges faced by those in isolation, however that isolation is caused. So we want you to identify a particular need that's related to that situation and explain how the product is meeting that need. The next criteria is usability. Really, this is ease of use. So have you considered how that product is going to be used by a user in that situation and some of the challenges that that user might face when they're using that product? So it's really important that you think through fully how this product might be used, some of the difficulties that that user might have in particular, and ensure that those needs are considered in the design of the product. And we want to make sure that you're explaining that to us, that you think the product is going to be easily used by that user. The next one is feasibility. So this is more from the technical feasibility of the product. So is the product possible within the current limits of technology? So, you know, sometimes we like to say that absolutely anything is possible. And to some extent that is true, but there are always some limits. Okay, so no matter whether you're technical or not, hopefully this presentation and further detail that you're going to get today from Nordic Semiconductor will help you understand a little bit more about what is possible using the technologies we're asking you to use in this competition. The next one is value for money. So can the concept, if further developed, deliver a cost-effective solution to a user need? Any product idea is only a great product idea if it is ultimately cost-effective, because someone always has to pay for the product. So whether that be, for example, a government or a health service paying for the product and it's then given to a user and it then saves them money because it's looking after them, or if the user is purchasing it themselves, there always is a value for money consideration. So just have a think about how much your product might cost to make, and we want to make sure you've just considered that in the design of your product and that it isn't, you know, overly complex and overly ambitious such that it's too expensive. And the final criteria is impact. So can the concept, if further developed, significantly improve the quality of life, independence, or safety of the user that you've identified? So thinking back to the first judging criteria and that known need that we're looking for, we're now looking at the impact. So what impact will your product have on that user, and will it improve their lives, independence, or their safety? So please make sure you think through all of those judging criteria. Those 5 judging criteria are how your entry will be scored by the judges. So if your entry doesn't fit into those criteria very well, it's going to be very difficult for them to score. And also, if you haven't considered one of those aspects in your entry, that might potentially be detrimental to your entry. So please make sure you've read the entry guidelines and the judging criteria to have the best chance in the competition. Like we said, we don't need your entry to be super complex. It doesn't have, we don't need full designs. We don't need, you know, designs so that we could go away and make it tomorrow. What we want is the idea and the concept, and for you to have considered these judging criteria to make sure we've got the best ideas possible. So I'm now going to hand over to Torbjorn, and he's going to talk you through a little bit more on Bluetooth Low Energy and Cellular IoT, the two technologies that we're looking for you to consider in your product designs, and we would like you to understand some of the kind of limitations and capabilities of these technologies so that your entries are compatible.
Thanks a lot, Sam. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
so I'm going to give a brief overview, as mentioned, of these technologies without going into too much technical details, just to try to give you an impression of which technology is more fit for which use case. So Bluetooth Low Energy on the left side is a technology that we've been working on for a long time. As Claire mentioned, we're currently the market leader in this space. And Bluetooth Low Energy is a very good fit whenever you have some kind of relatively short range application where you want to talk to a phone. So whenever the user has a smartphone available, they can run some kind of app on the phone, and then that app can interface over Bluetooth Low Energy to all kinds of different types of devices. Bluetooth Low Energy is also a good fit if you have a relatively small network of devices where long range is not required. Then they can all network using something like Bluetooth Mesh or direct Bluetooth connections. Cellular IoT, on the other hand, is very useful when you want to have a device that can connect directly to the cloud without needing to have a smartphone available to act as the gateway to the cloud. So the cellular IoT device will essentially communicate with the base station, and then you can get up to 10-kilometer range, and wherever you are in the world, you'll be able to connect to the closest cell tower and be immediately connected to the internet. So any kind of application where you want to be completely independent and always have an internet connection, then the cellular IoT is a better option. But it's also very important to know that there can be sort of hybrid use cases where you might be able to use both BLE device and a cellular IoT device. So say, for instance, that you want to have many small sensor nodes that need to be really low power. They can all have a local network running on BLE. And then you can have one device in the network that can also have a cellular IoT connection. And that can act as the gateway to the internet if you want to be able to access all these sensors. So in terms of some of the key specifications, I'm just going to go over some of the most important ones. So on the left side, we see Bluetooth Low Energy. On the ease of use aspect, one that is very important that I mentioned is that pretty much all modern mobile phones support Bluetooth Low Energy, which means that you can immediately access all these devices already out there. And if you have your phone on your person, you can use that to access your Bluetooth Low Energy devices. Cellular IoT, on the other hand, connects directly to the mobile network. So you don't need to have any device on your person for the device to be connected. In terms of spectrum range, Bluetooth Low Energy uses the 2.4 GHz ISM band. And this is a very useful band in that it's open worldwide. So anywhere in the world, you can use this band. It's an unlicensed band, which means that if you want to set up your own little network of 2.4 GHz devices, you can do that. You don't have to pay a license to anyone. One reason for this is that this is a relatively short-range technology, so the signal is not going to go very far, which means that you're not going to cause a lot of interference for other people around you. Cellular IoT is quite different and uses a much wider range of bands. From the 9160 supports about 20-30 bands in the range of 700 megahertz up to 2.2 gigahertz. And these bands, especially in the lower range, allow you to talk over a much longer distance. And for that reason, these are not unlicensed band, but these are controlled by the network operators. So that means that they will give you bandwidth, they will give you a time slot where you can speak to ensure that you won't have problems with collisions with other devices in the area. In terms of throughput, Bluetooth Low Energy, in the infancy of Bluetooth Low Energy, you had about 128 kilobit per second throughput. Now with Bluetooth 5 and later, you have up to 1360 kilobits per second. So it is possible to push a fair bit of data over a Bluetooth connection if you're talking to a device or a phone that supports Bluetooth 5 and these higher speeds. Cellular IoT, on the other hand, is optimized more for low power use and low data rate applications. If you're using LTM, which is one of the main two modes that we support, then you're looking at about 375 kilobit per second downlink. If you're using narrowband IoT, which uses a smaller bandwidth and is a bit more limited on data rate, then you're looking at 60 kilobit per second downlink and 30 kilobit per second uplink. In terms of range, I mentioned earlier that Bluetooth Low Energy is relatively short range. So in a typical indoor scenario, you're looking at about 10 to 50 meters of range. Maybe if you're outside and you have line of sight, you can get a couple of 100 meters. I think we've seen more than a kilometer in some cases, but more practical, the range is around 10 to 50 meters. Cellular IoT, on the other hand, is optimized for much longer range. So you're using a lower frequency, you're using a much higher output power. So that means that you can go up to about 11 kilometers on LTM and up to 15 kilometers on NB-IoT. And this is what allows you to basically be free. You can basically walk anywhere within an area that has mobile coverage, and you will be able to communicate and send information to the cloud. So in terms of power consumption, on the low end, they're quite similar. So if you're just sending data at a very slow rate, you can get down to about 0.02 milliwatt on either BLE or Cellular IoT. But if you're pushing quite a lot of data, then on the BLE side, you're looking at about 10 milliwatt worst case if you're doing something like Bluetooth Mesh, where you need to have the radio enabled all the time. On the Cellular IoT, it goes up to around 200 milliwatts. And the reason for this is that the output power is much higher to be able to reach these ranges, which means that the current consumption of the radio is also much higher. In terms of topology, Bluetooth Mesh or Bluetooth Low Energy is quite flexible. So we can do one-to-one connections, you can do star configurations, and you can also do mesh networks like implemented in the Bluetooth Mesh specification. Cellular IoT is basically a star network. So essentially every base station will set up, can connect to a lot of different devices in the star configuration, and there is no mesh capability in the system. So in terms of applications, the number of applications for Bluetooth Low Energy is really too big to list, so I'm not going to go through everything, but instead I'm going to show a couple of interesting ones that have sort of propped up the last couple of years. So security is a big application for Bluetooth Low Energy. So in this case, we're showing a connected door lock, allowing you to unlock your door as long as you have your phone on your person. What you can also do with this is that you can give temporary access to other people to use their phone to open up, which is good if you're renting out your apartment on Airbnb or you have some friends coming over that might want to lock in for a limited time. Another interesting application we've seen is this consumer goods application where you have a small sensor with Bluetooth Low Energy and accelerometer, which is connected to pill bottles. And then essentially every time someone removes a pill from a bottle, it's registered. And then as the bottle runs out, it can send a signal to a gateway. And then it's possible to administer sort of how much content there is in these different bottles. Another interesting one is this tooth sensor you can see here. So this is basically a small clip that fits onto your tooth and allows to measure the pH level in your mouth. And this can be used to detect different sort of dental issues over time. And then this data can be aggregated and sent to your smartphone. And then it can be shared with your dental doctor, basically, to analyze the data. And this is sort of showing off how small and low power you can make something with Bluetooth Low Energy. Doing something like this with Cellular IoT, for instance, is not really possible because the complexity is quite a lot higher. But with Bluetooth Low Energy, you can make a device that is really, really tiny, like something like this. Pet trackers is another big thing. So if you want to open your door in the house every time your cat comes home, but you don't want to do it whenever some other cat sneaks by, then, for instance, you can make a small tracker like this, and you can use it to see where animals are. Obviously, you could also make a version with a Cellular IoT system if you want to be able to detect where the cat is anywhere in the world. And you can also use the GPS functionality that we have in the Cellular IoT device. So in terms of Cellular IoT, here are some of the use cases for that. One of the biggest one is asset tracking, because as I already mentioned, we have GPS functionality built into the Cellular IoT device. So it means that in addition to the LTE connection, you can also receive signals from GPS satellites and use that to determine your exact position anywhere in the world. So it's possible to make relatively small tags that can communicate with the internet all the time and report the position, which is obviously very useful when you're tracking shipments and things going through the world. Wearables and medical is another one. If you don't want to be dependent on having your phone around, it's very useful to have a cellular IoT device to go directly to the cloud. Retail and point of sale is a similar story. Home security, again, if you want to have access to your door lock from the internet at any time, then having a cellular IoT device is useful. That could obviously be combined with the Bluetooth Low Energy device if you also want to have the direct phone connection whenever the phone is nearby. Smart metering is another big application that's popping up these days. Now that it's a big focus on energy consumption, and there's also a focus on installing solar panels and producing your own energy, then we need more sophisticated metering and power measurement. And then having a direct internet connection that's not dependent on any local Wi-Fi or any other local networks is very useful for the power companies and also the user of these meters. Smart agriculture is similar. We're obviously trying to make agriculture more optimized. In many countries, it's very expensive to have a lot of farmers running around. So if you can optimize it, it's a big advantage. Similar for parking, which can also be made more effective by allowing every parking spot to communicate directly with the cloud whenever a car is parked or not. And then the final one is predictive maintenance. So essentially, if you have different types of machines or things installed in buildings around the world, it's very useful to be able to monitor these devices as they're being used and be able to detect any kind of problem with this device. And once again, very often we have customers coming in that might be able to use some kind of local Wi-Fi connection or something like that, but they have experienced that it's very unreliable and it's sort of scary to rely on some local internet connection. But if you have the cellular IoT, you essentially have connection as long as there's a base tower nearby. So in terms of further information, I would definitely encourage you to take a look at some of our earlier webinars. So we have one which is the introduction to cellular IoT, which goes through those technologies, and we have a similar one for Bluetooth Low Energy. So you can take a look at those if you want to get a bit more detailed information about these things. And then you can obviously contact Nordic for support. So nordicsemi.com is our main web page where we share a lot of information about our different products. And we also provide pointers to the things such as the dev zone. So I work in a support group in Nordic. We're about 35 support engineers right now working out of Norway. And we all man this developer zone, which is the main support portal for Nordic. In the developer zone, you can post public questions that the whole community can sort of help out and help answer. Or you can post private questions, which are only shared with Nordic and are kept completely confidential if you want to share some information about your product or something like that, which you don't want to share with the world at large. And then we also have some GitHub accounts. So we have one called Nordic Semiconductor, which is the more official of the accounts, where we share a lot of our official software development kits and different software examples. And then we also have one called Nordic Playground, which is more of an unofficial account where we can put out one-off small examples. And a lot of the examples in the Nordic Playground has been made by support engineers on request of customers. If people are asking for something that we don't have in our official SDKs, then we can quite easily put out examples on this one. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Torbjørn. So now we just wanted to talk through a little bit more some of the situations that you might want to consider in formulating your entry. So on the competition page, you'll see that we're looking to particularly look at the issues faced by those in isolation and how loneliness affects different groups of people. So what we're particularly looking to do is for you to reflect actually on, some of the similar situation with COVID-19. So with COVID-19, what we've seen is that people that wouldn't normally face isolation, that would normally be able to live quite free, active and social lives have been forced to spend much more time with themselves, indoors, alone. So what we think is this is actually quite a good opportunity for people to think a little bit more about the issues that people that face isolation every single day might be facing, because actually you're in a much better position now to be able to relate to them. So up here on the screen is just a few clues at some of the ideas that you might want to think about. So elderly people, for example, might be facing different kind of mobility issues. They might have issues perhaps remembering things if they suffer from illnesses such as Alzheimer's. So think about the kind of challenges that they might face around the home, and if there are any product ideas that you can think of that might address some of those challenges. We've also got things like, children have been spending a lot of time at home, not at school, not seeing their friends. So again, loneliness is affecting that group of people as well. We've then got most of the world has been working at home, trying to get their work done around family, and also trying to keep active and healthy lives. So what issues are that group of people facing as well? So normally we might see that it's only kind of elderly or disabled people that are isolated in their homes, but now many more people have been isolated in recent months. So really the main message is kind of take a look around you in the house, think about some of the issues that different groups of people might face, interacting with the things around them, and what ideas do you have to solve some of those problems?
Yep, that's great, Sam. I mean, that's a really good point. So it doesn't always necessarily need to be elderly people. So people can be isolated at home for many, many different reasons. So if someone has a disease such as cancer, which affects their immune system, then obviously they need to stay at home and not, even without COVID, they can't really go out very much, because even catching a cold could prove to be very catastrophic for them. So it's about keeping these people both safe physically from accidents potentially, but also keeping them, think about the things that maybe you've missed in the last couple of months, the social interactions and things to keep your mind active. So it's that kind of those kind of inspirations that we're hoping will hit you guys, and you'll come up with some really amazing ideas.
Great. Okay, so now we've reached the part of this virtual hackathon where we're looking to answer your questions and for you to share some of your ideas, and we can have a kind of conversation around those questions and those ideas if you'd like. So we've had some questions come in already. So what we can do is start to work through those. But I please encourage you to drop any questions that you have into the ask a question box or into the chat, and we'll try and get through as many of them as we possibly can during the time that we have.
And I'd also just like to point out the link at the bottom. So at the bottom of the page, you can see the link to the actual competition entry, and also there's an email address. So if you have further questions that we don't get the chance to answer today, then you can email connectthecommunity@rscomponents.com.